This episode of Strong New York Podcast is powered by Celsius. Now, my favorite drink is now a sponsor of the Strong New York Podcast, so I'm very excited about this. And they just came out with this mango lemonade, and I absolutely love it. So if you haven't tried it yet, grab yourself a can of this and live fit. Welcome back to another episode of the Strong New York Podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Santucci, and we have another Strong New Yorker on the podcast today. She is a board-certified physician. She specializes in endocrinology and also obesity medicine, and was a pioneer in the space, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Right?
Thank you.
Dr. Rocio Salas-Whalen. Is that good?
Yes,
was
perfect.
Yeah? Okay, good. Let's dive right into it because I know obviously GLP-1s are still a very hot topic. Everybody wants to know about them. And you in my opinion, were one of the first that I found on social media talking about the positives, right? There were so many people knocking it. What was this, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? People were talking about all the side effects of it. But this medication has been around for quite some time. We know what the side effects are, and we also know the benefits of it.
Yeah.
So I know you've taken a lot of heat for your stance on it in the beginning. Could you give us a little bit about how you kind of adopted it and why you were so pro this peptide?
Well, there are great medications to begin with. I started prescribing, the first FDA approved was back in 2005 for type 2 diabetes. So we have 20 years of clinical data that are being used as medication, right? So they're not new drugs that we're not going to know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. Initially, it was only approved for type 2 diabetes, and we started using it in patients with type 2 diabetes. But when patients were coming back to their follow-ups, not only their glucose was better, but they were losing weight.
Yeah. So who makes the call on saying, hey, only people who have type 2 diabetes? What if we see it works in one person, why wouldn't we use it for another demographic of people?
Because the studies, right? If it was only studied for certain indication, that's the only indication that's going to come out as a proof. But then once we use it in mass population, then we see other benefits when the patients are coming back. Mm-hmm. In this case, patients were losing weight, which in a diabetes medication, we never had one medication that would drop your sugar and drop your weight. Either you drop your sugar or your weight go up. We didn't have one that treated both. Okay. But because this drug only works as a diabetes medication if you actually have diabetes. So your sugar has to be high for it to work to drop your sugar. Mm-hmm. So if your sugar is normal, if you don't have diabetes, it doesn't cause hypoglycemia. And that's the beauty of this drug, that then we started using it off-label just for weight loss without diabetes.
Mm-hmm. So you were an early adopter. You started using it. Was this a choice on your hands, or is there a kind of a summit or anything that other doctors started to use it? Like, hey, I started to use it in some overweight clients who don't have diabetes. Like, how'd that all kind of come about?
So the first that we started using it early on were endocrinologists, which is specialized in diabetes. Mm-hmm. And then we started using it off-label for weight loss. Then people catch up, academic institutions catch up and start doing studies. The pharmaceutical catches up, right? Yeah. If they have this drug, but it's causing weight loss, immediately they start investing in doing investigational trials just for weight loss. Mm-hmm. And then the FDA gets involved, it approves it for weight loss, and then everybody wants to prescribe it or can prescribe it.
And now when did that start to happen? Because I think the media started to pick up on it probably last year sometime.
So actually, the first indication for weight loss independent of diabetes was in 2012, which was Saxenda. It's a daily injection. Okay. And then in 2021, Wegovy, which is Ozempic, was approved for obesity and weight loss. But really, Ozempic became the poster child.
Yeah. And it's like the Band-Aid of the brain.
This is because it happened in COVID. So came COVID. Mm-hmm. Patients with higher mortality, patients on the ICU, patients that would get the sickest were patients or people with obesity. Mm-hmm. So people got the message that you didn't have to wait 20, 30 years to have complications from your weight. Came a virus out of nowhere and you were having higher mortality. You had a risk of dying. Mm-hmm. I had patients in my office come and say, I don't want to die from COVID. I need to lose weight. So we had the demand, and then we had the medication that actually works for the first time. So it was this boom. Yeah. And that's why we are where we are right now.
Now, where did all the negative press start to come from it? Because I tell people drugs and food and anything we're putting in our body, even the way we work out, will affect everyone differently. The things that I do or eat, the example I always give is like peanuts. Kids could die from peanuts, and other people, it's their favorite food, right? So where did it start to get this negative backlash? Because I know that was a huge thing for a while. Everybody still talks about how dangerous it might be.
So think about it. We've been using it since 2005. And you never heard that in the press, that it was causing osteoporosis, that people were in the hospital, because we that are specialists knew how the drug works. We know how to guide the patient. The problem is when non-specialists started prescribing this medication, including med spas, right, online. So people that
gyms now.
Exactly. People that didn't have the expertise on this medication started prescribing it and causing the big side effects that we saw. So it was more technician derived than the actual drug. Like I have over 3,000 patients currently in my practice. Nobody has been in the hospital ever. I never had to stop a medication. So I always say this, the safety and efficacy is directly proportional to the expertise on who's giving you this medication.
I say that all the time. I mean, I just did a interview with a guy at the Arnold Classic. He's a 24-year-old kid. He's in phenomenal shape, and he just started taking testosterone. Now, I was getting some heat because they're like, why are you condoning this? I'm like, I'm not condoning it. He's a bodybuilder. Bodybuilders have been doing this for 50 years, 100 years. I'm just asking him the question, and I know there's other young kids. This guy's got a massive following, and there's other young kids out there who are experimenting with these drugs. So I asked him, I go, what is your recommendation to other kids your age? Because it's a real thing. People are doing it. So what's your recommendation to a lot of people? Because one of the things that kind of weirds me out is if I came to you, it's like, okay, I'm going to see my doctor. She knows my blood level. She knows what I should be doing. But now you have places like F45. It's like, oh, if you join, you get 3 months worth of GLP-1s for your membership.
People forget that it's still a medication, right? It's a medication that requires medical supervision.
100%.
And again, if you don't follow like somebody who has expertise or who's going to guide you the right way, you're not going to have the best results, right? I think the problem is how we see weight loss as a society. We see it as something external, as something cosmetic, right? But if we really understand that it's a health condition, it's a chronic condition, obesity is a chronic multifactorial disease. So if you think about it as a disease, you wouldn't be accepting getting it at a gym.
Yes.
Right? You wouldn't get your hypertension medication in the gym. You wouldn't get your diabetes medication in the gym. You would go to the doctor. So we have to change the perception of what it is to be healthy, and that skinny doesn't mean healthy, and that the goal of these medications is not looking a certain way, right? It's improving your metabolic markers. So at the end, you end up strong and fit.
Yeah, the big problem I see is that everybody, when it comes to weight loss or it comes to improving their lifestyle, it's always like, what's the cheapest, easiest, shittiest version?
And the fast.
Yeah. So, and I go, well, this is your life. This is your health. Why are you cheaping out on this? Why wouldn't you go see a specialist when it comes to this product? I've been on TRT or HRT, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I feel like it's the same thing.
It is a hormone replacement.
Yeah, it's a hormone, right? So I've been on it for 2 years now, 3 years, and I go see my doctor. She checks my levels all the time. I would have never got it from somebody in a gym who was like slinging it on the side of like being a construction worker or something. I think people just need to realize that if they're getting this drug, they should get it from somebody who's responsible and knows how to, kind of mess around with these things. Yeah. So what are we seeing that people are doing? Are they overdosing on it? Are they, in a way, like they're taking too much and it's affecting other kind of systems within their body?
So the worst case scenario with this medication and not proper supervision is muscle loss.
Okay.
Right? And I always tell my patients, muscle is your most important metabolic organ that you have, right? It's your burning calorie machine. Higher muscle mass decreases all-cause mortality, right? Is the organ of longevity. So we want to protect muscle, build muscle. You know this, I know this, as much as we can. But if you are on these medications, as with any diet, and this is not a direct effect of the actual drug to muscle, it's just that you're going to be decreasing your caloric intake, right? So in any diet that decreases your caloric intake, there's always the risk of muscle loss. So a red flag is if your provider is not doing a body composition when they're going to prescribe this medication, because then they're doing things blindly, right? We want to know what's your muscle mass, what's your visceral fat, what's your percentage body fat. Those are the 3 important markers that we need to follow. And we want to save muscle as much as we can. And in fact, the conversation halfway becomes muscle-centric. Patients are, when they're coming back, they're more interested in if they save muscle, if they build muscle, than the actual weight loss.
Which is great, which is a great kickstart. One of the things that I see wrong, and this is just from my industry, is that when you're giving people Ozempic and they're not doing anything to build muscle, right? You have a lot of these, like I said, the F45s and the Orange Theories and a lot of these HIIT studios that you're not doing anything to build muscle. And you'll see a quick bump in your physiology early on when you start to lose a little bit of weight, but you're not doing anything. You're doing more cardiovascular work than you are doing strength training. So I think that's where the big mess up is with a lot of these gyms and stuff, other than they shouldn't be giving it away anyway, in my opinion. Like, I think what I've done in the past is partner with a doctor and send people to them that, hey, listen, this is what you need to do. You should be guided by somebody who knows what they're talking about. What I've seen happen with a lot of people and some of my clients is they use it as an excuse to be like, okay, now I don't have to go to the gym anymore. Now I don't have to eat right. I could just take this and eat what I want and live this lifestyle that I think is the best for me.
Yeah, and that's a problem. So actually, if people knew the work that you have to put in it when you start a GLP-1, it's not cheating. It's not the easy way out. It's actually difficult, right? Because we are going to work in maintaining muscle, saving muscle, and you know that is not easy, right? So depending what you invest on it is what you're going to get out of it, right? Now, the risk is that you end up skinny fat or sarcopenic obesity, right? Yeah, you lost 30 pounds, but 20-30% of that was muscle. You are still metabolically unhealthy. You're still at risk, and worse, because then you're going to feel weak, frail. So at the end, the end result that we want is for patients to feel strong and fit.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I always tell people, use GLP-1s as a catalyst to get into better shape, to start to feel better, but don't rely on it and use it as a crutch, because you still need to change the habits in your life.
100%.
Right? The people who are, I don't have time to go to the gym. We were just talking about, I went to this Health Optimization Summit this weekend, and people have all this time to do all the biohacking things, right? They got these yellow glasses on, they're cold plunging, they're sauning, they're eating, all different types of weird plant-based shit. I go, but you're not doing the biggest biohack of all is exercising and lifting weights. Yeah, and the easiest one to do.
And the free.
Yeah. So, I wrestle with it because I do appreciate the drug. I think it's a miracle drug. I think it helps a lot of people out. And the one thing that you touched on before that I want to dive into a little bit is people, I'm empathetic towards people who struggle with their weight, because different than people who struggle with a drug addiction, you don't need drugs in your life, right? It never is there going to be a time where you're like, you need to do cocaine, right? People need to eat. So when somebody struggles with their weight, like I did, you still need to eat. So it's like you start to crave different things. And I've learned more and more over the course of my career that it's not this, I could just cut it out of my life type thing. It's an emotional attachment, and it's a chemical attachment to it as well, correct?
It's really interesting. When I started specializing more in obesity medicine in the last 6 years, I was enlightened by talking to patients and learning, and I was humble because we as a medical culture, society, our recommendation was eat less and exercise more, right? That was our to go. Eat less, exercise more, come back in 6 months. Patient is not telling me the truth. I'm sure they're really eating. They tell me the exercise. I don't believe it. So there was mistrust from us to the patients and the patients to us. And then what happened? We stopped having the conversation, and then we dedicated our effort to treating the complications of obesity because we couldn't treat or prevent it from happening, right? But talking to my patients, I learned what I didn't learn in training or school is that they were actually following recommendations. The majority of patients that struggle with obesity at one point in their life, if it's not the whole life, they are working at it. Yeah. They're thinking about it. Everything revolves around that plate in front of them. So that idea of the patient lazy, couch potato, I mean, I haven't met a patient with obesity that does not want to have obesity, right? Or that they've done something in their life. And for many, in like your case, they've struggled since childhood, right? And I see them in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. You're talking about decades that is consumed about the plate in front of them. How is it going to impact their weight? How are they going to feel after? They're going to be guilty. Patients give me classes about diets that I never heard in my life, right? They go to fat camps, what they call them. Yeah. I mean, I have patients that have even personal chefs that they cook for them. So that there's been the possibility to lose weight and it just didn't happen. Why? Because that's not the cause of obesity, right? It's a multifactorial condition that involves lifestyle as part, I will say it's 25%, genetics, hereditary, right? If in your family, your mom, your dad struggle with their weight, we know now that the weight of your parents' preconception, both mom and dad, is going to determine your weight in the future. Really? So if your mom or your father had obesity while preconception, you have 50% almost risk of developing obesity in your life. How do you have control of that? Right? How can you have control of that 50%? You're already almost set to struggle. Then we have hormonal causes, right? Like perimenopause, menopause, type 2 diabetes, hypothyroidism, and then we go to aging. Right? There's nothing we can do about aging, but our metabolism will slow down after 40. And then we have environmental factors, which is another huge part. We have food industry, right? Horrible. Processed food, ultra-processed food, chemicals, BPA, living in different environments where we were raised, that all increases your risk of obesity. So if you think about it, a person really has 25% or less, 20% control of that. And it had to become so restrictive to overcome everything else that was not sustainable long term.
Yeah, we always looked at it as just this one, maybe two-pronged thing. It's like move more and eat less. And it's actually not. And that's one of the best ways I've heard it put is that there's multiple factors that will cause this. I always say when it comes to athletics, you know, when I was younger, I was very unathletic. I mean, everybody who works for me is always like, no, you're so athletic. I was like, but I wasn't. And I was very heavy as a kid. And I was the only one in my family. You know, I have two brothers and a sister. So there's 4 of us. And I one of the things that I struggle with psychologically was like, I don't understand why I'm fat and everybody else isn't. I don't understand why this is happening to me and everybody else around me skinny. But my parents were overweight. They were overweight for all of us, but like my brothers and sisters were all skinny. And this has become obviously my life's work. I live, eat, shit, and breathe the gym space, which is great.
And I would ask you, how are your siblings now?
Overweight. Yeah, my sister's not, because my sister actually works out, but my 2 brothers are very heavy, and they have the worst diets in the world. For me, it's like I had to transition. I had to literally make it my life's work for me to stay away from it. And I still kind of struggle with it from time to time. You know, I have to be so dialed in. And as I've gotten older, that's another part of that spirit. Like I need to dial in everything. I need to double time what I've been doing in the past for me to stay in the shape that I'm in. And everybody's like, oh, you look great. I'm like, well, I've given up drinking. I've given up going out. I eat super clean. I can't really do much more. I go to the gym all the time. So what's your advice because I have a lot of clients out there and, you know, there's a couple of people I know who listen to the show who have some young kids and they struggle with obesity. when do you recommend that people start to adopt using GLPs, both for adults and kids?
Yeah. So the current guidelines right now, it's approved for age 10 years and above for type 2 diabetes, because we have obesity and type 2 diabetes in 10 years old, and exclusively for weight loss without diabetes at 12 and above. So I always like to put an example of my patient, let's say in their 60s or late 50s, that struggle with weight their whole life, that this is their life mission, is to get to a healthy weight, and everything has revolved around that. But if you have this person at a young age and you can relieve them from decades of struggling,
yes,
why wouldn't we do that?
1,000%.
So I treat my patients I have as young as 11 years old, 12 years old, and they do great. They do magnificent. At that young age, they require a very small dose. Now, with 12-year-old puberty kids, you have to, again, and these are medications, you have to go with somebody who has experience in these drugs, because you can stunt growth.
You can.
Right? You can. If you push too much the accelerator on the appetite suppression, you're going to stunt growth. So
Makes
you have
sense.
to go with somebody who is measuring the height in every visit. And if they're slowing down of the height, there's no growing, you have to back off on the medication. So these drugs can be life-saving, life-changing, but you need the right
Still
conductor, right? You need the right doctor to really be anticipating any of these issues when using the medication.
No, I mean, even for myself, taking testosterone was such a big step, and I looked at it, it was demonized for the longest time, especially in the gym world. Like, if you took it, it's like, oh, natty or not, you're taking drugs. I feel my life has improved since I've been on it. I feel better. I operate, a lot better than I did before. I'm in less pain. One of the things that I was dealing with was a cyst on my brain, and my body wasn't making any testosterone or HGH or anything like that. So I needed some improvement in that field. And my back pain went away. And that's why I always talk about this on the show. I go see a doctor, get blood work done, and understand what's going on in your body. People don't realize that your endocrine system is responsible for so much of how you feel on a daily basis. And
I think testosterone replacement is a perfect example for people to understand GLP-1. If you give somebody testosterone, and I see this when I do for my female patients that they take testosterone, they said, "Oh, I'm going to get muscular," and I said, "Well, the testosterone is not going to do the job.
Yes,
you still have to put the job in the gym.
Yeah.
It's the same with the GLP-1.
Yeah,
the GLP-1 you still have 100%. To work, right? If you take testosterone, your muscle is not going to be popping out. You still have to put the work in the gym. The difference is you're going to start seeing better results. Same thinking of the GLP-1.
So those are hormones, right? These are like hormone replacements or peptides. And I think there's a lot of people out there who truly don't understand this. Now, an anabolic steroid, could you give us the difference between what that is? Because you could take an anabolic steroid and start to see muscle growth with very little effort in the gym. Whereas with something like testosterone or GLP-1s, it's like you'll get some results, but you still have to do the work in the gym to get the results you think you're going to get.
Well, I mean, it is what results you want, right? Same, we can put it like a mirror opposite. With a GLP-1, if you're just thinking you want to get skinny, then yeah, you're going to get skinny, but that doesn't mean that you're healthy. Same with anabolic steroids. You're going to get big, but doesn't mean that you're healthy, because not only your muscle is going to grow, your fat tissue is going to grow, right? It creates hunger. You're going to be eating. It creates almost like ravenous hunger, because it's a growth hormone, right? Anabolic hormones are growth hormones that promote growth of the tissue. But it'll depend on what you do, what's going to grow.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So it's at the end, what result you want. You just want to get big, you do testosterone or anabolic steroids. You just want to get skinny, you're going to do a GLP-1 without the work. But that's not the goal, right? The goal is your internal health.
So you were one of the first to kind of adopt this mentality. Why, as of recently, have we seen such an acceptance within the medical space? Because when I first started my event back in 2015, I was talking to doctors like yourself who were kind of ahead of the curve. You know, Gabrielle Lyon was one of my doctors pretty early on, and she had been talking about muscle tissue for the longest time. And she was one of the people that I trusted and I believed in. And I was lucky enough to have early access to her. So I said, all right, here are these doctors talking about the same thing I'm talking about, but they have obviously the letters after their name to make it more legit. How do we merge these two? And we're starting to see that gap close a lot.
I love this.
What's funny is I just got a message from Mount Sinai asking me to come and speak at an event. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
About fitness and how it relates to, this. Yeah. So, but like, why now is the gap closing?
Because of GLP-1.
You think so?
100%. Yeah. Because more than ever, we doctors, I mean, I'll say it for me, more than ever, I refer patients with a trainer. That's like 5 times a day, every single day. I'm talking about my patients, referring them with a personal trainer to learn how to lift, to avoid injury, to grow muscle, than ever before because of GLP-1. Now, what's happening with GLP-1? GLP-1 brought a lot of attention to your body composition, right? If you tell me about 2015 that we were not talking about it, it's because we didn't see. We doctors, science, we need to see the data, right? We want to see the numbers. Now that we're doing so many body compositions on patients and so many patients or so many people are on GLP-1, we're getting this huge influx of data, right? So now we know that muscle is important, that you risk of losing muscle with a GLP-1, and that sometimes I tell my patients, look, this is how you squat, this is how you do this. And I know because I've been lifting weights since my early 20s. That's going to be almost close to 30 years. So I know what it involves to lift weights, how you need to lift. So I teach that to my patients, but I still refer them. But if somebody doesn't have that experience, that's because of my life experience, you're not going to know how to do that.
100%.
So then you need to rely on personal trainers. And more than ever, and I think that's also, at the beginning, I felt like personal trainers, gym enthusiasts, and fitness enthusiasts were rejecting the medication, right? Because like, you were like, that's what I do. And now you're going to tell me.
Everybody thought it was going to threaten their job.
Yeah. And it's actually, I can ask you, are you getting more clients?
Yeah. Well, because now people are like, oh, okay, now I could do this. And now it's socially acceptable to do it. You know, one of the things that I always tip my hat to CrossFit on was they made it cool for guys to do group fitness, and they made it acceptable for women to lift weights, which also ushered in this idea of like, hey, I could take these weight loss drugs. I could lift weights. This is all helping me.
Yeah.
You know, this is all things that I should be doing. It's been talked about pretty recently. You know, I just did a podcast with another friend of mine, and we were talking about how, you know, exercise is part of hygiene. We should look at it the same way we look at taking a shower, brushing our teeth. Like it's something that everyone should be doing. What's your advice to older people? Because I know there's a couple older people out there that in my family who are so, they have this mentality, obviously. And I want to talk about creatine as well, because I know people are like, oh, I'm going to get bloated. So, but with GLP-1s, there are a lot of older people who are like, oh, it'll stop my heart. Like, where is this idea coming from that it's like so bad for an older demographic?
It's just because what you see on TV is like what's going to drive numbers, and what's going to drive numbers is like people in the hospital or vomiting or stuff like that, right? But if you look at the data, it's all positive, right? My oldest patient on a GLP-1 is 84. I have a 77-year-old female patient that I've only seen virtually. She lost close to 90 pounds.
Wow.
And only 6 pounds of muscle.
Here's what you realize that other people don't realize. The effects on that person's life, whether they live another day, another 100 years, it is impacting their life like you will not believe. As somebody who used to be overweight, I know how it changes every aspect of your life. It improves every aspect of everything you do on a daily basis. The way you look in the mirror, the way you walk down the street, the way you engage with other people, you know?
And I think for what a lot of people don't understand is for many patients, they've been failed, right? They lost... They think it's unreachable for many of them, right? So for many patients, they need a good push to start being motivated. And people think like they need to be motivated before they lose the weight, right? Like start going to the gym, you're going to lose the weight. But for many patients, it takes 20, 30 pounds of weight loss for them to physically feel that they can go to the gym, and psychologically too. So for many patients, they need this startup to actually get to the gym.
So we're seeing, I mean, obviously we talk about this all the time in the fitness space, this divide, right? That people are now becoming more and more fit than they ever have before. We're seeing people do things in sport that we've never seen before. People are jumping higher, running faster, doing longer races, lifting heavier weight. It's just it just keeps growing. However, we also see the people who are in bad shape continue to go down this road, like making themselves worse. So, I mean, obviously you can't blame one thing, but you know, is it the food industry? Is it the lack of education? Is it, you know, what is it? What is it about this that we start to see this divide that these people aren't kind of bending towards the middle a little bit more?
Look, we cannot talk about weight. We cannot talk about health without having to talk about the food industry, right? I strongly think that the food industry will be held accountable at one point for the health crisis that we have and the obesity epidemic that we have, period. When? We don't know. And even if it happened now, it would take 3, 4 generations for us to see improvement in our health, right? But in the meantime, this is what we have. So definitely, I think the food industry, industrialization, is driving this now, working from home, now being more sedentary, having cities that are now allowed for walking, that doesn't promote walking, that you always have to be in a car, that you always have to be inside. So definitely all of that is one of the reasons that we are where we are, right?
What I just got back from Austin. I was in Austin and I got up Saturday morning and I went down to my hotel, and everyone in the lobby of my hotel, whether they were in shape, out of shape, they were all dressed in gym clothes, and it looked like everybody was like either going for a run or going to the gym. And I go, this is one of those cities that we should start to model the rest of the country after. You know, I feel like a lot of people are adopting a healthier lifestyle and pushing people to do that. And that's what I'm trying to do with the event is when I walk around and look at New York, you still see the average New Yorker just not buying into what we believe, you know, living a healthier life. I feel like people are walking around, they're still miserable. And in little carts, and that's what you were saying, it's going to be such a hard swing. It's like turning around a battleship. You know, you look at coffee shops and the options are still like, do you want a croissant? Do you want a muffin? Do you want all this shit? And it's built into people's minds that that's what I should have for breakfast. And it's horrible. You know?
And talking about why some people go one way and why people go, we also have to talk about accessibility, right? I mean, healthy food is expensive than a McDonald's or, right?
Well, do you think it's more expensive or do you think it's just more readily available? It's like a quick, easy option.
And education, right? I think also talking about the medications are relatively expensive, right? Especially if your insurance is not going to cover it. But I also think, and this is one thing that I like to do, is we need to re-educate the consumer on where to spend their money, right? Because people pay for their phone, pay for this technology, paying for the new shoes, paying for plastic surgery or a liposuction or tummy tuck, or pay for the thing that is going to change your life. And that's a working out, and for many, the medications, the GLP-1 too.
When I sell people on sending them to you or sending to my other doctor, I say, don't look at it as an expense. It's an investment in your life. This will improve every aspect of your life. So, you know, I try to convince people all the time. I mean, I've been doing it forever, that if you improve your physiology, you improve your metabolic health, that's going to change every aspect of your life. When people say, oh, I want to meet somebody, I want to get another job, I go, all those things could be improved when you look a certain way. And I didn't write this rule. You know, people are like, it's not always about the way you look, but the way you show up into a room is your business card. You know, people look at you, and I'm sure you get this all the time. Women are like, she looks fucking amazing. I want to look like her. You make other women want to be you, you know? only because you've put in the work.
Yeah.
You do what all the hard things that nobody else wants to do. And it's one of the things that I kind of argue with a lot of people about. I go, do all the little things so that the big things take care of themselves. Stop looking at the big things. Like, I want to meet somebody. I need to do this. I need to do that. I'm like, well, if you're doing all these things that make you more admirable, then those things kind of fall into place. People want to sponsor your show, come to you as a doctor. Like, that's all the things that people, I feel like, miss, is like all the little things that suck that you have to be done on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely, because they're preoccupied in how to get there and how to do it, right?
Yeah. So what's your recommendation to, some of your clients who just can't, and this is my biggest struggle, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there in my world who have the same problem. They just can't quite wrap their head around exercise or like falling in love with the idea of like going to the gym, because you're dealing with this, I'm sure, yourself.
Yeah. When I'm training or when I'm lifting weights, I always think, I wish that every single person would get to experience that feeling of, wow, I can do this, or look at me, I can lift this. Because once you have that feeling and once you know how that feels, you don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
You don't want to give it up. I wish every human at one point in their life, they will feel strong. Because once you have like that, then there's no going back. And I see this a lot with my patients. At the beginning of the journey is how they look, losing weight. And then half of the journey, it becomes more muscle. I need to build muscle. I don't want to lose my muscle. And then at the end, it's about being strong and about being fit. And patients are doing things that they never, running marathons, hiking volcanoes. They're doing things that they never thought it was achievable.
Yeah. I love that. And I actually, who's ever editing this, I want to make sure we use that as a soundbite, because that was awesome. Like that feeling. Yeah. Like, you can't reproduce that in any drug or any.
And once the patient feels that, there's no going back. Whenever that happens, I feel like, okay, my job is done here.
I get so many people who are like, my passion in life is to help people get in better shape. I'm like, that's everyone's passion. Everybody wants to be a contributing member of society when they find that thing that they love. And, it feels so good to watch someone else improve. I mean, I think that's what life's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, because it's not just how they look, it's how they feel. And once patients feel the difference and not necessarily look the difference, there's no going back either.
One of the topics that it's going to be a big part of Strong New York this year is premenopause and menopause in women. I think that's just such I feel like we get to this point, and correct me if I'm wrong, more for women, obviously there's this stigma that guys get better with age. Whereas like after a certain age, women get forgotten. And a lot of people, especially in my gym and, my circle, feel that like, oh, if I hit 40, my life's over. And I'm like, no, that's the back nine. You gotta play harder then, especially for women. Like, take care of yourself more, do the things that will improve your life. So I know you deal with a lot of menopause and premenopausal women. What's your advice to them on hormone therapy, GLP-1s?
So the problem was with certain studies that came in 2001 called the Women's Health Initiative. And they were studying women on hormone replacement therapy, and the data was interpreted wrong. And then media got out with it and created this fear that everybody stopped using hormone replacement therapy. So we have about 20 years gap that women, like our mothers, didn't got offered that. And that's why that idea of that after 40, after menopause, your life goes down, because we didn't have the hormones, or we weren't allowed to prescribe them or even teach about them, right?
Really? So there was like a whole blockade.
It was like, it went from 50-60% of the female population on it to 4%, which still right now, even though with all this new information that the studies were revised and we found out that, oh, no, it doesn't increase the risk of breast cancer, it actually decreases the risk of breast cancer. And now we're starting again. And that's why you're hearing so much now that women in midlife and hormone replacement therapy is like, we're getting that. I always say, say it's a very good time for women to be in our 40s right now because it's going to be completely different than it was for our mothers.
I'm seeing the difference. I work with, and obviously in this space. Yesterday, I had just met these two women who have this whole skincare line at this event, and they're both my age. They're like 42, 43 years old. And I go, I thought you guys were like 30. They look incredible. And they're like, well, we're on hormone therapy.
Yeah.
Obviously they have a great doctor who prescribes it to them and stuff. And you're seeing that difference. You're seeing that change. And the difference between somebody who takes care of themselves in their 40s and 50s, man or woman, is a huge difference. Like in your 20s, it doesn't matter, right? And then everybody kind of looks the same, but you don't start to see the effects till like 40,
now,
50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in your 60s. I have clients in their 60s who move like they're 100. And then I have clients in their 70s. I have a client today, 70, what is he, 76, Chris? Goldman? Or no, he's 76. Incredible. Like it's so impressive. And it inspires me because I'm like, this guy's spent his life working out and exercising. If I could look like that and move like that when I'm in my 70s, 100%. I think the older demographic needs to really take charge of their lives. The ones that aren't working out, start to exercise more because you're only going to inspire the people younger than you
people are looking
to continue to move.
Yeah. And I think in women, and we're hearing a lot of women and lifting weights and building muscle and all of that. Again, because we know that longevity is muscle mass. Yeah. But many women are afraid, like, oh, I don't want to bulk up, right? I don't want to bulk. And I always say, unless it becomes your profession, that you become a bodybuilder, that you're going to compete. That's the only time that you bulk up because those person are dedicating 5-6 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everything revolves around that. But for the person that is going to go 3 times a week on the gym, that's never going to happen. Ever.
It's never going to. What's your advice to people out there who say, well, if I lift too heavy, I'm going to get too bulky. I want a thin, long, tone muscle. What the fuck is that?
I'm going to say skinny is out. Skinny is out. Nobody wants to be skinny. I think finally women are getting the idea that skinny is not cute anymore. It's being fit, being strong, right? Yeah. So I love that women are more and more into lifting weights. I mean, I've lifted weights since my early 20s and I never bulked up, right? But I feel like more and more women are joining this and I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% love that. Kind of give us like what your day-to-day looks like. I mean, you're a mom, you have two kids, and you run your own practice. There's a lot of people out there who say it can't be done. It's too hard. I mean, give us a little deep dive into your life a little bit. You're one of the people I look up to. Like, it's so impressive, like what you've built. You've done it by yourself, basically. You have 2 kids. Like it's inspiring. And I want to encourage more people to look to people like you and less of these OnlyFans models.
Thank you.
It could be done,
I think one of the things that has helped me through life, and I went in residency, I went in fellowship. I mean, I had to work 24 hours, 36 hours straight sometimes. It's to accepting that not 100% of the time it's going to be perfect, right? When I wasn't in residency, I was weight training 5 days a week. During residency, I weight trained twice a week, right? When I share custody with the father of my kids, and with the week that I have them, I accept that I'm going to go to the gym twice a week. And when I don't have them, I'm going to go 3 times a week, right? So it's giving yourself that room. I think it makes a difference to sustain it long term. But if the 100% of the time you want to be, I have to work out an hour and a half, 5 days a week, it's not going to happen, right? Life happens. So it's just allowing yourself to some weeks not be at 100%, and it's okay. Or even if you take some time off, to come back, right? I think that's what's helped me through the time is that because I remember when I had my kids, pre-kids, I was working out 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
And now what were you at that time? When was that? Before you could?
I was in my...
Got to be 20 years ago, right?
No, I had my kids.
Because your kids are younger.
Are young. They're 10 years ago. So I was 10, 15 years ago. After my kids, I struggled to go back to the gym because I couldn't be there 5 days a week. So I was like black and white. If I'm not going to go all in, but then I said, okay, then maybe one day is better than none. I started thinking like that. 2 days is better than none. Okay, this week I can get 3. Today I can get 40 minutes. Great. Just
better than nothing.
Better than nothing. Just to accept that and make it part of your day to day, like with food, right? I mean, 80% of the time I may be like very focused with my food, but I have kids and sometimes they leave their chicken nuggets or they want to go get pizza.
Yeah.
I allow myself to do that.
That's so important.
You have to, because that's life, right? That's when you go into restriction is when everything blows up in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where people lose their New Year's resolutions. I think that's where they fall off the wagon is they're like, oh, I messed up once. I could continue to mess up and now it's all over.
And then I'll start again in a few months.
Exactly. And I think having that grace period, I don't really drink anymore, but if I'm out and if me being so regimented on what I do doesn't allow me to enjoy my life, then I need to cut that part out of my life or at least allow myself to do what I need to do to enjoy the time that I'm having. You know, I think people forget to live in the moment a little bit. So I tell all my clients like, hey, if you're at a party or you're at a wedding or you're with your kids, enjoy that moment, but then get back on the wagon, you know?
Yeah, just take it as part of, and I'm going to give you my experience. So I did paleo for like 10 years, lifting weights, my protein shakes. I was like really like focused. Then I got pregnant with my first kid at 37. It was like a switch went off. I remember waiting for the train and there was a Magnolia Bakery in front of me. And I remember thinking, if it's not now, when? And then I went the opposite and I gained 70 pounds with my first pregnancy.
Wow.
So that's why, like, after that, like, I understood that restriction and like being so regimented, it can only take you so far and you have to allow yourself to live, right? It's just a balance.
Where do you find the most success with dieting or like what you do as far as nutrition, and where are you at right now? Like, what do you follow? Are you following anything?
High protein, right? I mean, protein is your most important macronutrient. There's no doubt on that. All the science backs it up. And if we're talking about muscle, then we're talking about complete protein, right? And there's only 2 complete protein, which is animal protein and whey protein. Those proteins have all the 20 amino acids for muscle protein synthesis. So I'm eating animal protein, lean animal protein, and I do 1 or 2 protein shakes a day just to get in, or I put it in my coffee, or I put it in my yogurt. You need to get creative to sneak it in through the day to be able to reach 100, 120 grams of protein a day. That's what I aim for.
Yeah. So on the topic supplements, you just dropped a line. So give us, so you have a protein?
A whey protein. So I created my own whey protein because with my patients with GLP-1 and muscle loss, I always recommend to take certain brands of whey protein. But patients were coming back and saying, it's constipating me, I'm being bloated. Then I tried to look for a protein that had fiber on it. I couldn't find one. It was like either protein and the fiber, but separately. So then I decided to create my own grass-fed protein, and I added 4 grams of fiber and digestive enzymes to help digest better the whey protein.
Nice. And on that same topic, what about creatine? What's your advice to everybody out there who's afraid of getting bloated? And could you explain to us what that idea is? Like, what exactly is the bloating, and is this a real thing?
So, I mean, I'm going to explain like how I do with my patients. I try not to complicate their lives too much because they're not going to follow through, right? So if I can get a patient to do one thing at the beginning, is increase their protein in their diet. My second goal is to start lifting weights. And then my third goal may be implementing creatine or other supplements,
okay.
right? But I feel like when you start taking so many different things, it just, you don't keep up with it, and then you stop everything together, right? So creatine, I would say, is third on my list of importance. It is beneficial, 5 grams a day. I think the problem with creatine is when they try to do the loading and then 20 grams per day.
Yeah.
When we want to take it to the next level, right? I don't know why as humans, we always say, okay, but maybe if I take more, it's going to be better. And that's when we get into trouble.
Mm. And I think that's what complicates nutrition for a lot of people is you have so many experts and people are listening to bodybuilders on like when they should be eating, how they should be eating. When it comes to creatine and protein, I go, make it more simple on your life. Take it when you can. Don't overcomplicate it. Oh, when should I eat? When you're hungry, right? You not at the first glimpse of like, oh, I'm hungry, I should go eat a bag of chips. It's like, no, when you're hungry, eat every couple hours, eat something healthy, eat protein. But I think people overcomplicate. Should I eat before 11 o'clock? It's like, it doesn't fucking matter. If you're hungry, eat. You shouldn't be eating late at night, just to binge, because that's what happens to a lot of people. Could you talk about that a little bit? Because I suffer from that if I stay up late at night, I know it's something hormonally and chemically going on that I start to like crave sweets at night. What is that?
It's a reward.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking for a reward. Either you're bored, either you're anxious, either you're depressed. Whatever reward you're getting from food at that time, that's why you're reaching for it, right?
Yeah, and why the sweet? What is
Well, because for you, it may bring some sort of comfort. For some people, it's salty food. For some people, it's alcohol. It's going to relieve something that is going on emotionally, right? A connection that you have in childhood. Whatever is the reward that you're getting it specifically from sweets.
One of the things that I've been, it's been my new little snack. I'll take the oat whipped cream and I'll put like powdered peanut butter on it. Oh, it's so good.
And that's fine. And then once you do it, you have to let it go. Yeah, and then the next, don't do it every day.
Yep. Right? And I tell people, I go, if you're going to cheat, have something a little bit healthier in the house. Don't have like crackers and cookies and all that shit in your house, because then you're going to end up eating it like I do.
Definitely. Don't buy the stuff that you don't want to eat. I always tell that to my patients too.
So last time we were chatting, you had mentioned that there's some other drugs out there that are coming out that would help, and peptides that help promote muscle retention and muscle growth. What's on the horizon as far as the medical field?
I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The drugs are getting very sophisticated. They will become even more sophisticated, right? Everybody wants to invest on those medications. Every possible pharmaceutical is probably developing their own version of it. So what we're going to see in the next decade or so is just going to be very different than what we have now. There's some drugs being studied right now that have a combination that has a GLP-1 and then medications or substances to help you prevent muscle loss or grow muscle, right? That act directly in the muscle fiber. So, I mean, it's just what we're going to see is going to be very sophisticated, but we always going to have to work out and eat as lean as we can, right? That nothing is going to replace that. You still have to put that part work in.
Yeah, one of the things that people, I think, fear about a lot of these drugs is that they think it's going to cause cancer.
Actually, obesity is a risk factor for more than 20 types of cancers.
I tell people that all the time.
We see more breast cancer now from obesity than genetics.
Yeah.
Right. So obesity is the one high for risk for breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, stomach cancer, thyroid cancer, pancreatic cancer. So by decreasing obesity, with these medications, we're going to have less rates of cancer in the next 2-3 generations, less type 2 diabetes, less chronic diseases, right? Because now we're going to be actually preventing those from happening. That's
the answer I needed to hear. Well, guys, that's all we have. I don't want to eat up too much of the good doctor's time because I know she's a busy lady, but thank you so much for coming by. Where could everybody find you?
They can find me at Instagram at Dr. Salas-Whalen. My webpage is New York Endocrinology. And I'm writing a book. I'm coming with a book in December.
All right. Nice job.
It's going to be called The GLP-1 Breakthrough, and it's going to be a guide for people thinking or on GLP-1.
Is it going to be more for the medical field or just for general public?
It's actually not for the medical field. I'm sure a lot of doctors will buy it because they ask me a lot if I'm writing something. But it's going to be more for the patient, the people that don't have access to a specialist. So how they can take some control of that and have the best results.
That's awesome. Incredible. And hopefully we'll get you at Strong New York this year.
Yeah. We're going to be there with a booth.
Nice. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, and stay strong.